To get us started, let's do a couple of quick introductions. I'm Allan Reetz, Director of Public and Government Affairs at the Hanover Co-op Food Stores and Auto Service Centers. Much of my work involves advocating for local farms and food producers, public transportation, and affordable workforce housing.
And I'm Emily Rogers, Member Education Manager here at our co-op. And my work involves the development of engagement programs and opportunities surrounding our cooperative values. Those are food access, sustainability, and concern for community.
For those who are only vaguely familiar with the Hanover Co-op, here's a thumbnail sketch. In 1936, 17 local families founded our business. Of course, 1936 was during the deep social and economic challenges of the Great Depression, a time perhaps not so different than we find ourselves in today. The Hanover Co-op saw its way through many challenges in the 84 years since its founding to become the second largest consumer food cooperative in the United States. Here in 2020, the Hanover Co-op has 4 stores, 2 auto service centers, a production kitchen, and resource center. That adds up to a $77 million business with around 400 employees. Effective leadership is not a spectator sport. Community support takes many forms. Community leadership does mean stepping up and looking beyond that low-hanging fruit. Most of what we're going to talk about today happens behind the scenes of our business. Also, our presentation is not about giving you ideas to duplicate so much as it's about telling you how our teams approach problems. We aim to give you tips for saving time and delivering durable impact.
Here's what's ahead. 3 high-impact projects of the Hanover Co-op Food Stores and Auto Service Centers. You'll hear from those involved and along the way get a behind-the-scenes understanding of how creative problem-solving starts with focused curiosity, ways leadership through community stewardship start with the question, how can I help? And a few of the Hanover Co-op's common sense guidelines.
Finally, we'll close our presentation today with a few top tips for making the most of board and committee work.
Our 3 projects are food pantry redesigns, co-op car connects, and to start us off, Refill Not Landfill. Refill Not Landfill is a collaboration that began through one of our board of directors committees. Mark Morgan, who is a co-op member, a member of our board's waste committee, and the City of Lebanon solid waste manager, had observed that waste reduction efforts in the Upper Valley were really focused on recycling. The Refill Not Landfill campaign began by Mark posing the question, what if the focus was higher in the solid waste hierarchy? Reuse. This is where the co-op was a great partner fit. As a member-owned grocery store, we were already working on ways to build reuse into the shopping experience through the promotion of bulk foods and bringing your own container programs, along with phasing out plastic bags and promoting reusable bags as an alternative to help reduce plastic waste. Refill Not Landfill was designed as a community-based social marketing campaign, looking to impact the behavior of our Upper Valley residents during the month of April. So how did we do this? We challenged participants to pledge to reuse. Reuse a shopping bag, a coffee mug, a water bottle, or to pack a lunch every day. Knowing that each time one of these actions were taken, a behavior was established. We had 270 residents take the pledge, and we gave away weekly prizes to help encourage reuse behaviors. After the pledge month ended, we wanted to keep the momentum going and build a higher impact. So we invited all the pledge participants to attend a community conversation about building a reuse community. We held these conversations quarterly, and community members participated in exercises to help us identify the barriers and higher impact solutions that were specific to our Upper Valley area. From these conversations, which included not only community members but local businesses, we identified a waste reduction effort that would make a large impact, a reusable coffee cup program. At the Hanover Co-op Food Stores alone, we use over 100,000 disposable coffee cups each year. And Mark was able to extrapolate from the landfill data that they dispose of over 29 tons of disposable coffee cups annually. By focusing in on this one waste item, we knew we could begin to make an impact in reducing waste in the Upper Valley. And the co-op took the lead. We committed to beginning a program in its food stores. The next 6 months was spent researching other programs around the country and the world. What we found was that we could easily start our own program, but it wouldn't have the ability to grow past us and make that larger impact. So instead, we kind of focused in on programs that had low entry costs and could easily be started by any organization. And we also actively searched for other local cafes who would be interested in supporting and running a reusable cup program. Eventually, we found Husky Cup and their Husky Swap program. The Husky Swap program began in the Co-op Food Stores, at Lucky's Coffee Garage, and at Jake's Coffee Company in early 2020. The program helps to build convenience into reuse. Participants can purchase a Husky Cup and swap it out for a fresh sanitized cup for their coffee at any Husky Swap location worldwide. So through answering one question, what if the focus was higher in the solid waste hierarchy, we were able to grow community participation, create community partnerships, and begin a higher impact waste reduction solution right here in the Upper Valley. Currently, we're all dealing with the impacts of COVID-19, and this has made an impact on our reusable coffee cup program. Our partner cafes have had to switch to curbside service quickly, and so the decision was made to pause the program for the time being. But we are committed to implementing the Husky Swap program as soon as is safely possible.
Programs like Refill, Not Landfill are important community collaborations. As Emily explained, it's one that grew out of her direct involvement with a community effort focused on waste reduction. You've probably worked on community programs that also have a beginning that's easily traced and has ongoing results that can be seen every day by people throughout your community. Yet some ideas and lessons for community service are harder to learn unless you know where to look or who to ask. Our food pantry redesign projects grew from a single employee's observation of a problem and a willingness to apply his skills to lead the way to change. From quiet beginnings 8 years ago to this day, the results of our food pantry redesign work remains outside the community spotlight, yet hums along with lasting impact and almost anonymous efficiency. Throughout the remainder of our presentation, we're going to be sharing recorded phone conversations with some of the key players involved, such as Rick Argin. So, just like you heard directly from Emily about the Husky Cup program, you'll hear the focus and determination of other folks. Rick worked in our grocery department in many roles for over 20 years. His work involved processing a small monthly order for the Upper Valley Haven, a busy food pantry and shelter in our region. It's common for food pantries, such as the Haven, to supplement the donations they receive by purchasing more food from statewide food banks or retail outlets. Managing that influx of food can be a challenge for the food pantry. For Rick, he heard the Haven was having problems with storage space, so he decided to investigate.
At first, they were having an issue of ordering product and filling up their garage. So I took a trip over there, and they were really trying to act like a warehouse versus a store. They were ordering things in like quantities of like 40 and 50. So if that's going to last you a month, let's break that down into like weeks, and I can get you 10 cases a week, and that makes everybody happy. So that freed up their back room tremendously so they could order on a weekly basis. They were ordering like 4, 5, 6 pallets at a time, and it ended up just being busy work.
Well, nobody needs busy work, especially nonprofit organizations. So whether it's you or a team member, taking that sort of time to look behind the scenes and ask questions is where the problem solving starts. In Rick's work, after he fixed the ordering process, he spotted a way to make better use of the newfound space. In other words, he stayed involved and said, what can be done next?
And it's like, you got all the right fixtures. All we need to do now is, we got them a few carts and some things like that. Is just set it up like a grocery store. When you have people that you guide them where you want to go, and then we can get it on a weekly basis. You don't have to warehouse this stuff.
So Rick solved the warehousing problem, and he set up the space for efficient use by customers. It's fair to say Rick had a keen eye for problem solving and a willingness to help. But let's pause for a moment and discuss how he knew he had approval from the cooperative to make these offers of help. Because employees at companies like ours know that they work for socially responsible businesses, it's important that they also know that you support their creative problem solving. Yet without guidelines or boundaries to manage that creativity, sometimes what appears to your team as a simple solution might create unexpected problems or commitments beyond your budget. At the Hanover Co-op, Director of Operations Bruce Follett gives his teams leeway while emphasizing sound business management. Bruce sees a lot of creative ideas come across his desk. He keeps the creativity and planning in the hands of the employees, but he does ask that they remember a few key points. Here's what I call Bruce's Simple Six. 6 tips to help create projects with impact and projects that remain manageable. Number 1, the ideas need to be manageable. Beware of solving manageable problems with cumbersome solutions. Do you have the capacity to institute the program and support it for the long haul? Number 2, you can't predict everything, but you can reduce problems. Stress test the ideas. Try a pilot program before launching the initiative. Just don't solve a simple problem yet create a future headache in the process. Number 3, creative solutions are often called thinking outside the box, but you've got to have common sense. When outside the box, everyone must consider the financial and resource impact inside the business. It's important to enjoy your service to community, but as Bruce reminds his teams, doing a project only because it's fun is not enough of a reason. The project has to meet the other criteria listed here. Number 5, we know that a good program is bound to attract similar requests from other organizations, so expect that. Is your idea shareable? If you don't anticipate being able to accommodate additional requests, it doesn't mean that you don't start the new program, but what you can and can't do has to be understood by your team from the beginning. Maybe a redesign of their initial idea can solve that. And remember, what's not possible today might be doable in a year or two. And as a manager, don't hinder their creativity. They're pros at problem solving. Let your team know you support their actions, appreciate the insights, and that you'll look forward to being kept in the loop. So with that clear understanding of Bruce's Simple Six, Rick solved the warehouse problem and the shopping problems. Then he kept asking questions, and he came up with another idea. While he was at the Haven, he saw a lot of food that wasn't coming from our stores or the statewide food banks, and that raised his curiosity. After helping save on the space, he figured there might be some more savings to be found.
Through that conversation, it's like, where do you get the rest of your food from? And they said that they got certain items from like the food bank, and the rest of it they were just paying retail on 12A. My thing was like, okay, so these people are giving you any type of break? It's like, no, we're just paying retail. And that's when we had a hard conversation here on what could we do, and it's like, well, I know we can do something. And Bruce agreed, and that's when it was basically said that we could donate our margin and sell it to them at our cost. We're letting them use our partnership as a community partner with our buying power at our warehouses.
And with that, the local food pantry gets the buying power of a $77 million business. Rick's results were pretty clear. He identified problems he could fix, and he had the support. He also created a simple tool for both parties to use. With the ordering process Rick created, he designed a simple spreadsheet that the Haven uses to order from, and he just treats it as an invoice. The weekly time involvement from one of our employees now is 20 to 30 minutes. With creative thinking came an efficient back room, easier shopping for food pantry clients, and a lot of money staying hard at work for the Haven. With the wholesale purchases from the Hanover Co-op, the Haven could now make precious money work even harder.
Here is the raw number from 2010 to 2019. It was $649,161. That's at cost, which basically left a donated margin of $214,223. So a little over $200,000 we took right off just as a co-op's donation. That's the long and the short of it. You pay what we pay.
Rick could have been satisfied with organizing a back room. We know he could have stopped when he set up the space as a grocery store. And he kept asking questions like, where does the rest of this food come from? And now, $200,000 and counting is staying hard at work for the Upper Valley Haven. And how does he feel about those sorts of savings?
It makes me feel good because our company believes in giving you that authority. And, some things you have to seek final approval, but there's nothing wrong with suggesting or discussing or, doing something different. What's not working. That's what makes me feel good. If something's not working, we can change on the fly. For me, I know I have a great feeling every time I send in the bill that nobody's taking advantage of them.
And here's how the food pantry at the Upper Valley Haven looks today as volunteers stock it to better serve those in need. Are you thinking of a creative project you'd like to bring to a community nonprofit? Well, here's what Jennifer Fontaine at the Haven suggests you keep in mind on how to take no for an answer.
It's always wonderful when businesses want to give to the community in the way of giving to organizations, but I think the first thing they need to understand is what is it that the organization does and what is it that they need. It's great to come with ideas to an organization, but you need to be willing to listen to the people at the organization about what they see their needs as. And you may be right, what you have to offer is something of great value, but they might not be ready to accept that offer. I think keeping that in mind. And if you hear no, I would say never be afraid to ask why, because most of the time it's going to be that it's not the right time. It's not that it's not a good idea.
We recognize that the details here may seem like a lot for launching a program, but a $200,000 payback for a community partner, and right now about a half hour's worth of work on our end each week, seems worth it. Having a shareable program is pretty important. We've discussed that. It still involves a careful understanding of unique needs. When you share something, you still need to look, listen, and ask. Co-op category merchandiser Leon Vallia knew the Havens redesign project was a winner, so he brought the Havens project to the food pantry at Listen Community Services in Lebanon. But perhaps it's what Leon didn't do first that was the best initial step he could take. He did not just show up and try to bring the Havens food pantry model and apply it to the space at Listen. No, he knew he had a model to build on, but first he had to investigate and use his professional curiosity.
Find what their needs are first, and then impart your knowledge around what they need, because it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. That was our first question, is like, what are your needs? How does this get worked? How does it get shopped? How do customers use it? Another question we had was, what are the more popular items? So you put those in a better spot. It's just taking some of the store things we do day to day and implementing them in a different way. Yeah, that day was really rewarding. We felt like we'd accomplished something, but we felt like we'd really accomplished something. And we'd helped out in another way, so it was fun.
He sought to learn the needs before sharing solutions. One day of work 5 years ago with two of his team members, and you could still hear the satisfaction in his voice at having accomplished something important.
Like the sustainable results that were shared between the Haven and Listen Food Pantry projects, we hope that sustainable results lead to the sharing of our final project highlight. At the bays of our Hanover Co-op Auto Service Centers in Hanover, New Hampshire and Norwich, Vermont, we had quiet beginnings but essential impact with our newest program, Co-op Car Connects. Co-op Car Connects helps assist Upper Valley residents in need of essential car repairs. This program began with Service Center Manager Jimmy Kidder and a simple question: how might he use our auto repair business to help the community? But his creative solution did not come about overnight.
For me, it was probably a good, say, year and a half, 2 years of to just in the back of your mind of what can we do, and how do we even do it? As you know, it's when we only had one service station. You're booked out 3 to 5 weeks. It's also hard to get a customer in to do that.
Once you build a culture surrounding community stewardship, it inspires people to want to become part of growing impact.
I feel very strongly about what the co-op has always done, the pennies for change and stuff like that. So it's how can we put our skills to kind of do our part? Our skills are automotive. It's what we can do. Your automotive repairs can sometimes be the thing that drags you down. Do you have to make that decision of changing or putting your tires on or replacing your brakes or, that's safety of not only yourself but your kids or, your parents or whoever you may have in the vehicle with you. So sometimes if you have to make those decisions, by us helping and developing something like this, it can ease a lot of people's minds.
When Jimmy brought the idea of a program to provide assistance for car repairs to our outreach team, we were all excited. We thought this program could truly fill a need in our community. The question we had to tackle to implement a program like this was, how do we assess need? And the answer was, we weren't equipped to assess need. The service center teams could provide a service and a skill. So to move this idea further, we needed a partner who was adept in assessing and addressing needs in our community. Listen Community Services was the first organization to come to mind, and we connected with Angela Zhang, Program Coordinator for Listen.
We're a nonprofit agency in Lebanon, New Hampshire, and we serve the Upper Valley region, and we help people with their basic needs. So things like food, housing, heating, anything that you need in order to get through the day. You know, people kind of come to Listen as sort of a catch-all, sort of like, you know, here's this like thing that I need, and I don't really know where to go. And cars was always the place where, like, no one we knew would touch that. Like, there are very few organizations who are willing to get into cars. You know, not being able to afford car repairs can be really devastating for some people, and it really impacts their ability to get to their job.
The team at Listen worked with us to pilot this program. Those in need of car repair services are able to contact Listen directly and receive a voucher to put toward needed car repairs. The client then works directly with our service center team to set up an appointment and have the work done. Often these repairs are centered around completing a car inspection, and the vouchers have been able to cover 100% of the repair work needed. The Car Connects program is a great example of the importance of partnerships in community program building. Beginning a partnership program takes time and effort, and investing this time and effort is important. It allows for programs to be refined for the benefit of all. Angela shares how this process played out between the Co-op Service Center and Listen.
What was really critical to this program early on was having this really open communication and partnership between us and the Co-op Service Center, and then trying to be really attentive to what the clients were telling us about the program, about what worked well and what didn't work well, and then being able to come to our monthly meeting and say, like, hey, can we change this? And then being able to just sort of like pivot on the spot, and then in that way it just makes the program stronger and better over time.
For Jimmy and his team, listening and being flexible to the needs of Listen as a partner organization helped build a strong partnership.
We need businesses to be able to listen to us in terms of what are some of the challenges that clients face on a daily basis. And so it's really great when businesses have flexibility in their process and are able to sort of engage with, like, okay, like, we had this idea of how it can work, but we're willing to change things up so that we can accommodate our clients for whom this might be a barrier, and making programs as accessible as possible.
Opportunity to lead and make a difference always exists. You have to look, listen, and be willing to share your labor. And how did doing this work feel to the Service Center team?
To the staff, I mean, it's a very, if you want to say, warm and fuzzy feeling, but it means that we're more than just, you know, you're not here just for a paycheck. You know, what we do makes a difference. We have our benefits, we have our pay, and we know that the work we're doing means something. And to see that, you know, the faces on the customers as they go out of here, it's a heartfelt feeling for myself, the guys that are working on it, and you know, and that we did make a difference in that person's life. You know, it might be the only good thing that they were able to experience that day.
We said it before. Leadership is not a spectator sport. For socially responsible businesses, it's not enough to be casually involved. Jimmy Kidder saw his cooperative making a difference for people suffering from a lack of food, and he asked how he and his team could use their skills to make a difference in people's lives. As we've learned thus far, you need to assess your skill sets and aim for hidden problems whenever possible. Seek out local partners to leverage skills. We found partners and managed to grow relationships with the Lebanon Landfill and Lucky's and Jake's. And our teams had the flexibility to get deeply involved with extra meetings, running pilot programs, and pivoting based on the needs of those they're striving to help. Growing impact is what socially responsible businesses strive to do every day, even when it means sharing a program with a business that some might see as a competitor. This is about helping people. When Jimmy Kidder was asked if he'd be willing to teach a competitor how to run a program like Co-op Car Connects, he was unequivocal in his response, saying that he would be ecstatic and would absolutely help them out. In our final few minutes, let's look at community service at the board and committee level. Well, this seems pretty obvious, to believe, commit, and support. You do need to believe and feel passionate about the work that you'd be involved in. That seems pretty obvious. But have you ever found yourself doing committee or board work and felt like you weren't properly serving the organization or making the best use of your time? Committing to the board work demands a bit of resilience, there's no doubt about that. And lending your support beyond the four walls of a meeting room is a classic trait of leadership through community stewardship. And of course, there's always room to learn and always room for growth. So in order to share ideas with you and maybe provide a refresher on some things that you know you should be doing, I reached out to my network to gain a variety of insights on this topic. When I spoke to my list of, well, what I was originally going to call my list of village elders, and I decided to go with the gang of 8, I knew I was tapping into a whole lot of experience. As you look at the names or organizations, you might recognize a few. You can just imagine the years' worth of meetings those 8 leaders have participated in. So let's tap into their common sense advice. I asked each leader to share answers to a short list of questions and gave them the chance to offer any bonus advice if they wanted to add some. Well, here are a few of the things they learned over the years. Number 1, why am I being asked to serve? Do I bring a special skill, or is it just a need for warm bodies? Number 2, you need to ask yourself, can you make the organization stronger? I posed the question, if you could only accomplish one thing through board service, what should it be? One of the leaders responded, that's the question that every board or committee member should be asked when they join a new committee or board. What do you hope to accomplish? What's the one thing you want to make sure you do? It's a great way to get focused. Number 3, you're needed as a full participant for an organization. Roll up your sleeves. We often hear about people committing time, talent, and treasure, or some call it wealth, wisdom, and work. But look, even if you're bringing the wealth, be sure to chip in with the work and the wisdom. Number 4, ask past and even present board members of a committee or organization how well the meetings are run. This is about respecting your time, too. Be a good sounding board for that executive director of an organization. They need your insight, assistance, but that doesn't mean micromanaging. Preparation. Yeah, probably one of the busiest people on the list that I showed earlier responded to this question very clearly. He commits 1 to 2 times the length of the meeting itself just in preparation. If he's got a 2-hour board meeting coming up, he's going to put in 2 to 4 hours of prep. That's what this is about. Show up to the table ready to go. I really like number 7. Remember those you are there to represent. Make sure their voices are central to your work. And it should be a joy, right? Not a burden. Number 8 hits the nail with that one. No one seeks out dreadful meetings. But you also need, as a participant or chairperson, to make it positive too. You know, if you're not inspired by the work or mission, why are you involved? Number 9, you need to see your involvement for what it is, highly important. If you see your involvement as doing a favor for the organization, remember that once you say yes to doing a favor, it becomes a responsibility. Treat your commitment accordingly. And ambassadors are needed. Your responsibilities extend beyond the conference room table, so be that ambassador for the organization with all the skill and time you can reasonably share. Push your limits. What about rules of order? Well, my guess is everyone viewing this presentation has been in productive meetings and not so productive meetings. The best committees and boards I've served on have had some degree of formality to get the work done. Doing the work is why you gather. Whether you're a member or chair, use time wisely. I love this quote from, again, a very busy person on my list of 8, who said, "Apply them with grace and humor and do so lightly unless there's deep division or problems." And that can come up, and that's where rules of order really earn their weight. The longer you serve on committees or boards, the more likely you're going to run into a major problem that will test your time, your abilities, and your judgment. That's a real gem when it comes to advice. How true indeed. It's also important to remember that personal agendas are not part of the agenda. Being passionate is fine. Being a zealot, not so much. You can make a difference. Share your wisdom, because if not you, who? Now, about taking votes. Voting is a particular pet peeve of mine. It's a critical part of managing the work of a group and reaching consensus. It's so important that I decided to skip the rest of my opinion on voting and ask someone with about 60 years of community service. When I asked him how many boards or committees he served on, he kind of scratched his head and said, well, at least 60 or so. That's Steve Taylor. Steve was Commissioner of Agriculture in New Hampshire for about 25 years, and I can't imagine what his resume of boards and committee work looks like. As Steve said, I got a lot of miles on the odometer. So when I asked Steve about voting, he said, absolutely, make it a normal practice. People need to expect to be engaged, be part of it. He added that, fortunately around here, most committees are 8 to 10 people, so it's manageable. But he said, set up that expectation. We're going to be engaged. There's going to be discussion on things. If people seem to be just sitting at the table and not engaged, Steve put it out there. He said, hey, Janet, what do you think? Mike, does this answer that question you had before? As a chair, you need to pull that out of people. I loved when he said, voting is essential. 6 months or a year later, no one should have to decipher old notes or debate who has the more accurate recollection on what was decided. Have a clear motion stated so folks know what they're voting on. Have a sensible discussion. Then when it comes to decision time, vote. When I talked about efficient meetings, he added another good point. He said, you ask your potential chairs and you say, how do you envision running a good meeting so people will go away feeling they participated in a productive use of time? If you're looking for a chair, what about the person who hasn't raised their hand for the chair slot? Ask them. They could be an excellent choice. When you have unsatisfying meetings, we know you'll lose talent. You'll want a meeting not only to be productive, but where your members look forward to it and walk out feeling like they got stuff done. Then you're tapping your talent and you're going to keep them engaged.
For the Hanover Co-op Food Stores and Auto Service Centers, leadership through community stewardship is an important part of the work we do each day. We encourage you to reach out to Allan and myself about any of the programs presented or topics we've covered for this session, and I thank you for joining us today.